The Susan Brender Show is a radio show online broadcasted on YouTube across the United States and globally. The show features guests who speak about health, spirituality, entertainment, and a host of subjects to enlighten people across the nation. Listen to the show that empowers women and men alike and highlights those who have made a difference.
I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. You know something? My guest today is Jennifer Showalter. Here's how you can help her, and it's important that you know a little bit more about her, but that is her motto, and her motto means a lot to her. You know, one of the things that's so interesting about her is that she is the proud child of a retired Air Force officer, and her family, you know, you have to know a little bit about them because this is a very interesting family. You know, her family moved around, but spent most of the time in Northern Virginia in the Fairfax County School System. And, you know, that is really the reason I believe that Jennifer Showalter is really here today, because she wants to address what's happening in the schools today and this whole critical race theory situation. Now, I want to introduce her again, but this time I'm just going to say a very little thing. I want to welcome you to the Susan Brender Show. Jen?
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You know, Jen, I'll tell you something. You know, when I met you, okay, let's talk about this. When I met you, you had so much passion and you were I could feel the anger. I could feel it. And I know why. Because who wants anybody to tell their children what to do and how to learn and how to not involve the parents in their education? That is a travesty. And you are fighting it. And that's what I like. I like a fighter. So let's begin by asking you, if you gotten started with this, how has it been going?
Well, campaign-wise, it's been going extremely well. I am part advocate and part campaigner. I can't separate myself from being an advocate because that is what this is all about, is getting people to understand what the issues are so that and also making sure that they understand what their power is so that they can start engaging.
Yeah, so. Jennifer Showalter, you know, once you got involved, let's talk about the beginning. How did it all start?
Well, I've always been very concerned about what has been happening, not only nationally, but what's been in our schools. But for me, my Pearl Harbor moment, as I like to call it, was when my two special needs sons' mass exemptions were denied. But we did all the hoops. We went through all the hoops that they asked us to do, and they still denied it. And that's when I started going down various rabbit holes, as some people like to call them, and taking a deep dive into not just that issue, but all the other issues that were plaguing our school system. And the more I uncovered, the more aghast I became. It was pretty horrifying the more I found. So I knew I had to look my children in the face and say, I did everything I possibly could to defend you, the 200,000 in the system, and all the future students coming.
Yeah, you know, this is a real travesty that's going on. You know, usually the teachers union and the government in general, they like to give parents a lot of power because they know that parents know their children and know what their needs are. But all of a sudden, we're in a different space. We're in a different time. And now they want to deny you the opportunity to let your children learn. Now, that's got to be a real smack in the head. You know, so I want to understand. Let's start from, again, the beginning. So you went to the school. Did you say anything to the principal? Did you talk to anybody who felt the way you did?
Oh, yeah. Well, we had Zoom meets. My two sons are in two different schools. So we spoke with both schools. I spoke with the principals. Pretty much anybody that I could get a hold of. And I had varying responses. Some were very sympathetic and were like, I can't do anything to help you. I'm sorry. To people who were pretty glib about it. Like, hey, this is the way it is. Take it or don't take it. And so I started speaking at the school board meetings. I started attending rallies. I started trying to contact higher up people, those in like representatives, the governor's office, if I could find anybody that would talk to me, and just say, hey, we have this Bill of Rights. We have the Constitution, for that matter. Let's start at the foundation. We're a constitutional republic, not a Marxist totalitarian state. So there's checks and balances. There's a system of government, and this is overriding. This is a gross overreach of government. And I was kept hitting roadblock after roadblock. And speaking at the school board meetings, it became very apparent. I went to every special meeting, workshop, and regular school board meeting, and I listened and talked to parents, teachers, staffers, even this worker, a cafeteria worker, who was shaking in her boots because she was terrified to get up there. But she spoke about the horrendous conditions. People passing out by the stoves because it's 400 degrees and they're wearing these masks. And they were very, very clear that it didn't matter at all what we said. Nothing.
What do you attribute that to? I mean, when we went to school, or actually you're a different generation, but when I went to school, there was so much concern for the kids. And not only that, there was so much concern for what children did in the schools. They wanted you to learn. They wanted you to understand everything. Math, reading, you name it. These were very important, and they tested you for this. And one of the good things that happened is that you were able to make a decision for yourself. What am I going to do with the rest of my life? And that's what school is all about. It's all about helping kids to be something. Now, I want to know from you. So you hit all these roadblocks, and the narrative that you got was, we can't do anything because we're just one person. Now, that is the question I have for you. You're one person, okay? And I'm sure you have some friends who really agree with you. But on the other hand, what about the congressman? What about the people in the state? You talked about the governor. He's been a great governor. Why did he want to listen to you?
Well, he should listen to me because I'm a constituent. But actually, I find that the more I talk to people, the more there seems to be common ground. A thing that resonates with a lot of people is choice, being able to make a choice. People who are very much anti-masks, that are, they don't want anybody to wear a mask, that's when you start butting heads with people. But if you bring up the idea of choice, if you want to wear one, you should be able to. If you don't, you should be able to not wear one. The same thing with the vaccines. If you want to take one, then that's your choice. And if not, you shouldn't be mandated to do it. That resonates with everyone. I was literally I have signs and messages all over my car. You can pretty much see it from space. And I was walking back to my car in the parking lot, and this gentleman was looking at it, and we got to talking, and he is like, I agree with everything you said. And I said, wow, okay, that's great. And he goes, and you know what? I said, what? He said, I am from California, and I'm as liberal a Californian as you're ever going to find, but I still agree with everything you said. This is out of control. So I find that a lot. And my message is is that we're Americans, and that we need to work together, and we may disagree on several things or how to go about certain things, but there's a big umbrella called the Constitution, and either you're under it or you're not. So that's where I think a lot of people are banding together. And unfortunately, we do have some representatives in our area that are very not helpful. But I think that more and more are starting to read the tea leaves and understanding that the people are waking up. They're not woke, they're awake, and they're realizing that they need to get involved. They can't be bystanders in this process anymore.
Our president, and I don't want to get into major politics because, people hear it and they read about it all the time. But our president is advocating for the opposite of what you want. And that is a travesty. If we have a president who would say to the people, we follow the Constitution and the Constitution gives us choice. I love that word choice. Jen, when I hear you talk about choice, I feel that there is something wrong in our society, something that is really not giving us the things we need. So, with that in mind, one of the things that I think about is your passion, because when I hear you talk about this, you can hear the passion in your voice. And I want to know where you got that, because a lot of people, as you said before, the woman in your school who was, worked in the cafeteria was scared to death, but you're not. So what do you attribute that to?
Well, I attribute it to having faith, but I am a big believer in the Constitution. And I was a military child. My father was an officer in the Air Force, and that taught me a lot about, sticking through when things are tough, having a mission, making sure that a mission is accomplished, and having a deep and abiding love for this country. And I am also a mother. My children have gone through so many experiences. They're all gifted, but my two sons are special needs, and we have been in and out of the hospitals with them. And it just builds character. I have a spine, and I am not going to back down from bullies, which is what is happening. They're bullies. And I teach my children all the time, and that they can't escape that. They're never going to outgrow bullies, and that they have to learn to deal with them at school, because when they get older, they're still going to be out there. And this is me showing my children that I'm going to stand up to the larger bullies that are out there and make sure that their rights are protected.
Where's the principal in all this?
It depends on the ones that you talk to. It's a wide variety out there. Some of them, unfortunately, are very excited about the policies that have been done. And then there are other ones who are very much agreeing with you, but they're afraid. They're afraid of getting terminated. They're afraid of reprisals. And they don't feel that they have anybody to back them, basically. So there's a lot that we've uncovered, and I've uncovered from my research into our county. And it's not just this one issue, it's all interconnected. And just to touch on a point that you mentioned earlier, what's been going on actually has been seeping into our school system for decades. We're just now seeing they're now at a point where they feel comfortable to just be full on with what they're trying to do.
Right. And what about the unions, the teachers union? Are they advocating for people like you, or are they actually doing something that is very political so that they're the ones who are the leaders, if you will, or the strong ones, or they're the bullies in a way? Don't you agree with me? Because, why wouldn't the unions promote choice? Why wouldn't they do that?
Follow the money. That's what I tell everybody. Follow the money. There's a lot of money trails to be found. I've talked to a lot of teachers, staff, administrators on the side, and they're very frustrated. They feel no one has their back. They feel that the unions have sided with certain individuals or groups and aren't protecting them anymore. So that is a great question. And it's something that needs to be formally addressed to these unions. I know that the staff are fed up. So they're starting to realize that the union doesn't have their best interest at heart. So, the best thing I can say is follow the money.
Well, that's an interesting point that you're making, and I'm sure that's true. Power People are power hungry and they love the money. So there's nothing wrong with what you're saying. In fact, it's very true. But here is the one thing, we've been talking about critical race theory, and I'm not sure that everybody understands exactly what that is. So I'd like you to define it, and I'd like you to kind of tell us exactly, how it formed and how it became such an important thing today as opposed to yesterday.
Well, it's an exceedingly important question, and not a lot of people actually understand what it is and how far it reaches. I like to think of it as a cancer that's metastasizing. It's just invading our entire nation. But just to give you a brief background, critical race theory is a concept. It's a Marxist concept that was developed by the Frankfurt School in Germany in the 1930s. And around World War II, they fled to Columbia University in New York, and they went underground. And it just seeped into academia all throughout our country. And then it kind of went horizontal, through the upper levels of education, and then it seeped down. And it became part of people's worldview. And CRT is critical race theory. People think, well, the words that they use, like equity, civic engagement, action civics, those are nice words, right? Well, it's an actual inversion of those words. So, when they think of equality, they think of equity and equality are two separate terms. I like people to make sure they understand that. Equality is giving everybody the same starting, same books, same quality educators, etc. And then they use their own work ethic and time, and they produce what they can on their level. Where equity is making sure that everybody has forced equal outcomes. So you're giving somebody a boost and you're chopping somebody other's legs off, basically. And that's not fair. And it's not actually equal. I have 3 different children, and I couldn't get equal outcomes if I tried with the 3 different ones. But CRT is basically trying to annihilate our country. It has a lot of premises that say, like, the most important thing about you is your skin color, and that defines you as a person. And our school board's mission and vision statement is riddled with this. CRT sees America at its worst and wants you to see her that way too. They do not buy into the fact that we have civil rights laws and that they mean anything. They insist it's the same, if not worse. CRT says there's no absolute truth, only competing narratives, that lived experiences matter more than facts. So that means, like our mission statement for our county says, elevating underrepresented voices and embracing and honoring their unique cultural histories. But where's Italian American Month, or Scottish, Celtic, French, or German?
Yeah.
And it says CRT says you're an oppressor or a victim, singularly based on your skin color. So if you're white, you're racist, and if you're a minority, you're a victim of a rigged system. And our school board actually had the term white advantage in their mission statement. And we had a small victory and got that scrubbed from the text. But if you read through the rest of it, the ideology is still there. It rejects America's founding principles. They don't believe that there's equal justice. So they want to dismantle the whole system. They don't believe in achievement. And they feel that what's the point of working hard when success will always be out of reach? So that's why a lot of young minorities are regressing academically. It's just this cycle of poverty. It just keeps going on and on and on.
I'm going to stop you for a second.
Yeah.
And, I received a book, and the name of the book is called Mama, Why Am I Black? This is one of the guests that I've had on, and he writes and he says, freedom and equality go together. It's your duty as a citizen of the one human race. Honor those words. We must also respect them so our new generation can inherit what those words stand for into their hearts and in turn pass them on. If we don't, liberty and human rights are one generation away from being taken from us. Freedom is like love. You must cherish it, nurture it, and respect it. Don't let anything distract you from the love of liberty, justice, and the right to pursue happiness. And that is what we have always wanted. And today, and I'm so proud of you, Jennifer Showalter, you have understood what the Constitution is, and you recognize what is being taken away from our families, from our children, and from our whole desire to get the best education that we can for everyone. That is the point. And I love the people, okay? I have just one grandchild who's 3 years old, and I think, Jan, what is going to happen when he goes to school? Because here's the thing, I want him to learn as much as he can. I want him to respect everybody. He happens to be half Mexican. And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter what color you are. It is just the hope and the dreams that you want so then you can make it happen. Don't you agree with me?
Oh, absolutely. And that's the whole problem, is that it basically is telling people they can't do it on their own, and that government must do, the only way you're going to have success is if they do it for you. And my sons, I have two boys, animosity that's already starting because they're simply white males is a huge problem. And if honestly, people don't even realize that whites only make up about 28.9% of the student population for our county. So we're actually the minority. And our school board's been on the board for collectively for 65 years.
Wow.
So if we have that systematic racism that they claim, they're the ones that have allowed it to flourish. But all of this is actually, I like to say this is all a distraction from our mediocre education. And part of critical race theory is to dumb down people. If you teach them what to think, not how to think, they won't question what you do. It's through learn to test. It's that stimulus response. They know the answer to one is B, but they don't know why. And they don't know why the other ones aren't. All this testing, they cram everything in there so that it's basically, you're just learning to test and then it just flows right out of your brain. You don't actually absorb the information and be able to articulate it back. Plus the fact that they are doing away with higher maths, because as Fairfax County stated when they turned their number one magnet high school into a lottery system versus a merit-based system, they said, and this is what they said, quote, "There's too many Asians and not enough Blacks." So even math is racist. Being on time is racist. It's a white concept. They are literally telling kids how to just listen and obey and not think about what they're doing. And so I've talked to a lot of people who are employers, and they're having to fire younger workers because they can't even problem solve. They don't even know how to work through to figure out steps to solve a problem. And then you have social emotional learning, which is part of critical race theory. And people think, oh, that's social emotional learning. That sounds like a really wonderful thing. But it's actually teaching children, it forces them to see all issues through an emotional lens, and it actually can shut down the right brain to logic and reason. So, and we see the fruit of this all over the country because they get emotionally charged. They can't express themselves, or they can't even listen to an opposing viewpoint. And we're seeing the fruit of this through our nation right now. And it's scary. Because if we don't stop this at the source, it's just going to keep our schools are just going to keep pumping this out, and we're going to lose our country. But I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to do everything in my power. And I'm telling you, people are waking up and they're realizing that we have to be able to teach our children to think critically, to question, to engage, to investigate. That's the whole part of education, is to develop those skills so that you can go out and be a productive member of the community when you leave.
Yeah. I'll tell you something, Jen. When I listen to you, when I really understand, and you've explained it to me, I mean, critical race theory is a crazy thing that's happening now. And before we didn't see it, but it is happening. And as you said, it has to stop. So you've been involved in many different groups and you're kind of pushing this issue. Now, if people want to get in touch with you, if they want to have a more understanding of the problem, how do they get in touch with you?
Oh, sure. They can either go to my website, which is www.votegen, Jen, PBSD for Palm Beach School District.com, or they can email me at jen@votegenpbsd.com.
Now, if you are wanting to learn a little bit more about what's going on in our society, in our schools, with our kids, and even with our adults, the person to really try to talk to is Jennifer Showalter. She's got a passion and an understanding of what is going on, and she wants and needs people to follow her, because if you don't, you're going to suffer. And there is no question about it. And I want to thank Jennifer Showalter for being on the Susan Brender Show. She's educated a lot of us. And I'll tell you something. If I had a chance, Jen, I'd be right with you doing everything that you're doing, because you are absolutely, I can't even say a word about it, because I feel that you're so interesting and so understanding of the problems that exist in our society today.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. And I'm happy to talk with anybody that would like to contact me. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter and Telegram. So you can find me all over social media as well. There's a lot to unpack with these issues. We have sex trafficking happening in our schools here in Palm Beach County daily. There are rapes and other things happening. This isn't a singular event. This is happening everywhere, and it's happening with regularity. And I tell everyone, if they haven't been to a school board meeting, to make sure they go to the next one. And for Palm Beach County, that's always the third Wednesday of the month at 5:00 at the major school district building on Forest Hill.
Thank you, Jennifer Showalter, for being a guest on the Susan Brender Show.
Thank you.